Hi, Kiki here, and today we are going to launch into the Hour of Code 2020 activities. And because I have recently joined the team at MakeCode, I thought it would be appropriate to start with theirs. So, in order to get to the Hour of Code activities for this year, I'm going to go up to my browser, type in hourofcode.com, and when I hit enter, it brings me to the US version. And because we're not quite at Hour of Code while I'm filming this, it still brings me to kind of the main Hour of Code landing page. And to get to the activities, I can either click on activities or I can click on try it. And when I do that, it takes me to this page where there are tons of activities for you to go through and for you to try. Literally, it feels like it goes on forever. And in this, you will find some of your old favorites. There's like a Crossy Road and Code Spark is on here. Dance Party from years past, you'll remember. There's stuff for Scratch. There's stuff with Code Monkey, Candy Quest, and Tinker. You're going to find Frozen. Do you remember the day when we first did Frozen? Oh, good times. Okay, so you'll find a lot of old favorites, but you'll find some new ones too. And some of those include the new Minecraft Hour of Code activity. There is a new one for 2020 for Minecraft education. And this one, this is the one we'll be doing today. It is the Play, Design, and Code Retro Arcade Games by MakeCode Arcade. So I'm going to click on that and it's going to give me my little informational page. This tells me that it is a beginner level, which is excellent. It's good for all modern browsers and it has a screen reader. So this means that no matter what machine you're playing on, if you've got a browser, you can play this game. The topics are art, media, and music. It's a self-led tutorial that takes about an hour, although you could finish one portion of it in a very short amount of time if you only had 20 minutes, or if you had 2 hours to play, there's definitely enough to keep you entertained. And this one comes in English as its main language, though I do believe there are some blocks that have been translated if you want to use the translation. All right, here we go. I'm going to click Start. And that takes us to the main Hour of Code 2020 page for Microsoft MakeCode. And here we are. This gives you just a little bit of information. And then it gives you 3 choices. Do you want to play? Do you want to design? Or do you want to code? And since this is Hour of Code, we are going to go straight for the code. And I'm going to click Launch. And that takes us here to the main page. And this says, let's make a game. First, we'll create a main character that shoots some projectiles. Maybe that's a duck that shoots bubbles, or a monkey throwing bananas, or a cat that spits hairballs. It's up to you. Okay, that's great. So now we already know what we're aiming toward in making this game. So I'm going to click OK, and you'll see there's a little tutorial screen that tells you what category you need to look in. So this says scene, so we'd go to scene down here. It says what you need to pick from there, and I'm going to pick set background color, and it says where you need to put it, and that's in the on start block. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to select a color for my game. I'm going to go ahead, for my background here, I am going to select oh my gosh, the choices. I'm going to choose this one, I think, right here. That should be a good backdrop for what I want to do. All right, now if you get stuck, you can click on this little bubble and it'll show you what you're aiming for. Also, you'll notice that it changed on my emulator over here. It put my background in, and you can stop the play of your game. You can reload your game. You can mute the audio coming from it. Right now, I don't have any audio coming from it. And you can view your simulator keyboard shortcuts. You'll see that when you're playing this game, you can move your character up with an up arrow or W. So you have your WSAD keys and your up, down, right, left arrows. You've got your space and your enter and all of these things in order to affect the game. And that's how this works on this little emulator. So you can use your keyboard or you can actually use the little joysticky thing right here and the buttons. All right, so let's move on to the next step by clicking next. And it says from sprites, drag the set my sprite to block on start. So I'm going to go into sprites, choose the set my sprite to block, and I'm going to put that in the on start. And now I need to figure out what I'm going to set my sprite to. And it tells me to go into gallery. So I'll go and there's all these sprites already made for me. Now, if you remember, oh my goodness, it keeps going. If you'll remember, there was a duck shooting bubbles. I think I am going to go with a bubble shooting ducks. So the bubble is going to be my main character, and I'll click done. And that's the fun thing about programming your own game, is that you can change things. You can make it the way you want it. It's your recipe. Put your special sauce in there. So, okay, now I have a bubble. And look, it showed up on the screen, but the bubble doesn't do anything. So let's keep going. It says, from controller, drag the move my sprite with buttons block after the set my sprite to. So let's go into controller, move my sprite with buttons. There we go. Now we can try it. And I'm going to try it with the joystick real quick. Lovely. And now I'm going to try it with the WASD and with the arrow keys. Good. Everything looks good. Now let's have our hero shoot some projectiles. Find on A button pressed in controller and drag it into the workspace. Okay, so this one, you'll notice that this isn't the same as the other blocks. It doesn't click in to on start, and that's okay. This is actually what is going to help us program the A button. And it is an event in and of itself. It doesn't happen after something. It happens when we press the A button. So we want it to be its own little container that we put stuff into. What do we put in it? Well, we want to put a projectile in it. So from sprites, drag projectile from my sprite. So we are going to choose projectile from my sprite, and we're going to bop that right in there. Okay, now we want to set the VY value, and that's basically the direction that it's traveling. We're going to set that to 0. Oh, nope, it's, I actually don't know. It's pixels per second, and it wants us to take it down to, 0 pixels per second. Oh, I see. This is drift in X and drift in Y. So we want it to not drift at all in the Y direction. So it's not going to drift up and down. It's only going to drift left and right. So that's what it's trying to tell us there. We want the projectile to come from my sprite, which is the sprite that we have created here. And we want that projectile to be, do you remember what we said we were going to have it be? A duck. And I think the duck should have its wings up, but also look, its chin up. It's a very proud duck coming from that bubble. And we'll click done. And so that's what the projectile is. Now, you'll see what you just did is say when your A button is pressed, you're going to set a projectile duck to come out of my sprite in the X direction 50 with 0 Y direction. So let's go ahead and see what happens. There you go. X, you're shooting forward, not up or down at all. Although, if you took this and you made it negative, your duck should come out flying sort of at a negative direction. So let's see what happens. This is gray, which tells me it's kind of compiling. Let's go ahead and hit reload. There we go. There we go. Oh, negative is up. Negative makes it fly. So that should mean positive makes it go down. This is really fun when you're programming on your own and nobody's sitting there watching you or timing you or telling you what you have to do. You can experiment. You can play. Yep, see? There we go. So what should happen if we made this negative 50 then, do you think? I'm going to let you experiment with that on your own. But this is what makes this fun. It's what makes it a discovery and a challenge, is you get to play with things and make it do what you want it to do, even though the computer is suggesting that you try something else. All right, next. Oh, that was the end of this portion of the tutorial. Okay, well, that was simple. See, that was just a few minutes. But if you want to go on and you want to create enemies in your game, you can click on this and it will take you to a new tutorial. And you'll see that it actually brought all your code with it. So you can pick up right from where you left off. All right, we want to add an on-game update every block. So we're going to choose on-game update every 500 milliseconds. So this means, like we had a block that waited until the A button was pressed to do anything, and we had a block that did stuff as soon as the game started. Now we've got a block that does something every 500 milliseconds as the game updates. So this will happen automatically. And what will happen automatically? Well, we're going to put a set my sprite to block in there. So let's find that. Sprite, set my sprite to, and we want to change this to enemy. And it looks like we want to rename this to enemy sprite. There. And the player kind is enemy, and now we need to pick an enemy. So if you remember from the gallery, we had a lot of things to choose from. But what would make a good enemy to a bubble? Well, I'm pretty sure a rock asteroid would make a pretty good enemy to a bubble. So I'm going to go with that, and we will choose next. Now, place the set position to block right below set enemy sprite block. All right, so we are going to find the set position, and we want to set the position of enemy sprite. There we go. And it says to, well, it doesn't say where to change it, what to change it to. There we go. Oh, we want to pick a random number. So we're going to want to have this rock show up somewhere. We don't know where. We don't want to know where. We want it to be random. So we're going to set it to random from 1 to 60, and that will cover everywhere from side to side. So it will cover the whole screen. So 160, got it. And now I'm going to take this block and highlight it, and I'm just going to Command C or Control C for a PC, and Command V, copy paste. And now I have another block here, but we want this to be 120 because you'll notice the height isn't quite as big as the width on that. So now you'll see that these asteroids are popping up all over the place, and I'm going to fire. Kaboom, kaboom, take that, asteroid. I'm shooting ducks at you. Ah! Well, nothing is happening. So this is kind of a boring game at the moment, and maybe it's causing me a little anxiety because the asteroids are getting closer and closer, and nothing will make them go away. So let's see what's next. We did this one. Oops. Drag an on-overlaps block into the workspace. Change the second sprite kind to enemy. So we are going to find a, oops, that's not it. Is this it? Yep, this is the overlaps block. So we're going to grab that. Look at, we're running out of room. I'm just going to move my canvas over here. And on sprite of kind player, overlaps other sprite. We want this to be of kind enemy. And then next, and then we want to put a destroy sprite. So this is an event, just like if you were to press a button or the game were to update automatically. But this one says when the player overlaps an enemy, then what do we want? We want the sprite to be destroyed. So I'm going to find a destroy sprite block. Here we go. Destroy sprite, and we want to use the other sprite here instead of my sprite, That means we have this little guy hanging out. We could just toss it in the trash can. And there we go. So now if the player overlaps the asteroid should be destroyed. Okay. So that was the end of this one. And now you can choose to put effects on your projectile. You could choose to make your enemies move, or you could make multiple kinds of enemies. I'm not going to go into that. I think I will leave that for you to do on your own, but I am going to click OK. I'm going to finish this tutorial and I'm going to show you, oh, I'm not going to share right now. I'm going to show you that when I click on that and I finish the tutorial, I get all these other options that I didn't have before. Now, something that I'm thinking about is this on-sprite player overlaps with enemy. That means if I'm shooting my duck isn't going to destroy the enemy because I have the overlap button set to myself. So I have to destroy the enemy. My duck isn't doing squat. It's just looking pretty. So what I'm going to do is I want to give my duck the power, not me the power, to destroy those asteroids. So what I'm going to do instead, because asteroids honestly should destroy me, I'm a bubble. I'm fragile like that. So what I'm going to do is instead of player, I'm going to go to projectile. And then that way, when I press the A button and I'm shooting my duck at these asteroids, see, now my ducks are making a difference. Go ducks! And I think that is the end of my tutorial today. So I hope you had a great time. I hope you enjoyed this game. I hope you want to go make something. Do you want to make it so that asteroids destroy your bubble? Do you want to make it so that your bubble destroys the asteroids? Do you want to make them not asteroids at all? I mean, flying trees could be pretty harmful to a bubble too. So let me know what you decided to do. Put your link to your project in the comments below and I will go play them. Thank you so much. I hope you had a great time. Can't wait to see you more. Until next time, happy coding.